Why did they all turn silent the moment she walked in? The hall was loud before she arrived. Boots shuffling, nervous laughter, the clatter of duffel bags. But when Emma stepped through the doors of Coronado's training compound, the air changed. A stillness crept over 200 candidates, as though instinct warned them that something about her didn't fit. She didn't look like the rest, not in pressed uniforms, not in boots polished to glass, not with muscles carved by years of infantry deployments. She wore plain clothes, jeans, a cardigan, shoes meant for walking, not running. 31 years old, slim, auburn hair tied neatly back. She looked like someone's sister waiting in a library, not a candidate for the Navy's most brutal training program. And yet her eyes, green, restless, never still. They tracked exits, cameras, guard rotations, the smallest details no one else noticed. Those eyes belonged to someone who had learned to survive in places where missing one detail meant death. The petty officer at the desk barely looked up. Name and service branch. His voice was bored, like he'd asked the question 1,000 times today. Emma Rhodes. Her tone was soft but not fragile, the kind of voice that lingered after you heard it. The officer's pen paused. He waited for the rest, the branch, the history, the credentials. But she placed a sealed envelope on the desk instead. A heavy manila packet stamped with red borders and classification marks he had never seen on a candidate's file before. He opened it, his eyes narrowing as page after page appeared almost empty, redacted, black lines swallowing entire paragraphs. What text remained was marked by authorization codes so high, he'd never even processed paperwork from those offices before. "Ma'am," he hesitated, confused. "There seems to be some." "The documentation is complete," Emma interrupted, calm and steady. "If you have questions, direct them to the program administrator." It wasn't a threat, it wasn't arrogance, it was something else. A tone so certain, so immovable that he swallowed his objection without knowing why. "Yes, ma'am," he muttered, assigning her to the female barracks. She turned and walked away. The officer picked up the phone the moment she left. Something about this woman needed to move up the chain. From the shadows of the administration building, an old man watched. His silver hair caught the sunlight, his cane tapping softly against the pavement. Robert Wilson, retired CIA, though no one really retired from that world. A Navy Cross pin on his lapel, a scar hidden under his shirt. His eyes followed Emma, narrowing, unsettled. "Impossible," he whispered to himself. She moved like Diane. She looked like Diane. The same tilt of the head, the same quiet awareness. 30 years had passed, but the resemblance was undeniable. And with it came a memory that clawed at him like shrapnel he'd never managed to dig out. "If anything happens to me, watch for the daughter. She'll come looking for answers someday." He had dismissed it back then. Diane never had a child, at least none he knew about. And yet here she was. Inside the female barracks, Emma unpacked in silence. 7 women had arrived before her, soldiers, rangers, marines. They stopped what they were doing when she entered, their eyes measuring her with suspicion. Staff Sergeant Victoria Westbrook, tall, broad-shouldered, ribbons on her chest that told the story of Afghanistan tour, crossed her arms. At 26 she was already a leader among peers, a storm front in human form. "Well," Westbrook said, voice sharp as broken glass, "looks like they'll let anyone try out these days." The words hung heavy. This was the test, the ritual of dominance. Everyone watched to see if Emma would fold. Emma placed her duffel neatly on the last empty bunk and began unpacking with slow precision. Folded shirts, standard issue gear, every motion calm, practiced. "I'm here to complete the program," she said quietly, "same as everyone else." Westbrook smirked. "Right, and I'm here for the spa treatments. This isn't summer camp, sweetheart. People wash out in the first hour because they can't hack it. You look like you'd have trouble opening a pickle jar." Snickers, half-hidden smiles. The room leaned toward Westbrook. Emma kept folding. No defensiveness, No apology, only a pause as she looked up, eyes meeting Westbrook's with something unsettling, not anger, not fear, but evaluation. The look of someone taking inventory, categorizing threats. "I understand your skepticism," Emma said finally. "Time will tell." The dismissal was polite, final. Westbrook didn't like it. That night the candidates filed into the briefing hall. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rolling in the distance. A storm outside and another inside, waiting to break. Lieutenant Nathan Blackwood stepped onto the platform. His reputation preceded him. Combat veteran, Silver Star, eyes that cut through pretense. "90% of you will fail," he said simply. Lightning flashed, casting his shadow against the wall. "That's not a threat, it's a fact." Emma sat near the back, notebook open, her hand moving in cramped, precise writing. Not English, not any script the others could read. A code inherited from another world, another war. Westbrook kept glancing back, curious, frustrated. The notebook was angled away, the script indecipherable, but she saw the focus in Emma's eyes, the stillness, and it only deepened her suspicion. Later, as the storm eased, Emma walked back alone. Her boots splashed quietly through puddles, her hair damp from mist. She passed two men speaking under the security lights, Lieutenant Blackwood and the old man with the cane. Robert Wilson. Emma's steps never faltered, but inside her chest something tightened. Her mother's journals had warned her about him. CIA officer, cold warrior, the man who had loved Diane Rhodes once and maybe betrayed her. Wilson's eyes followed Emma into the shadows of the barracks. His whisper was meant for no one. "She looks just like you, Diane. What game are you playing from beyond the grave?" Inside, silence greeted her again. Only the slow breaths of soldiers trying to sleep. Emma lay still on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Her hand traced the outline of the tattoo hidden beneath her shirt, the intricate insignia running down her spine, a mark almost no one alive understood. A presidential service emblem, modified with designs that belonged to a project long erased from official history. The mark her mother had carried. The mark that made Commander Reed's blood run cold when he first saw it, decades ago. They thought tonight was about physical training, about discipline, about proving who belonged here, but Emma knew better. This wasn't about training. This was about secrets buried in Berlin, about betrayal in Prague, about a name whispered only in classified shadows, Judas. And somewhere, maybe closer than she realized, Judas was still watching. Emma closed her eyes. The storm eased outside, but the one she carried inside, 30 years of her mother's unfinished war, was only beginning. Why was she already awake when the alarm shattered the barracks at 500? The others jolted upright, groaning, fumbling in the dark for boots and gear. But Emma sat poised on the edge of her bunk, laces already tied, bed already made with the precision of a surgeon's hand. She had been waiting, not nervous, conditioned. Years of training had burned the reflex into her body. Rise before the alarm, prepare before the summons. Her calmness only made the others bristle more. The first day's test was designed to break spirits. A 2-mile run in full gear, followed by the obstacle course, walls, ropes, tunnels, mud slicked by last night's rain. Candidates lined up on the cold field, their breath fogging, nerves thrumming beneath the surface. Instructors barked orders sharp enough to cut the morning air. The whistle blew. The group surged forward. Muscles strained, boots pounded against wet earth. Some charged ahead, determined to lead. Others fell back, already struggling under the weight. Emma kept steady. Not first, not last. Her stride was efficient, measured, like a pendulum swinging at its own pace. Private Rachel Thompson, young and muscled, shot her a look as she passed. "Thought you'd be at the back," she panted. Emma only adjusted her breathing and kept running. By the time they reached the obstacle course, the sun was cresting the horizon, light catching on the wet ropes and beams. Emma approached each challenge with the same precision. She studied first, watching others climb, stumble, fall. Then she moved, not with brute force but with fluid calculation. A rope climb became a puzzle of leverage and timing. A wall became angles and momentum. Her movements were efficient, quiet, almost too calm for the chaos around her. Westbrook watched from above, irritation growing. Emma wasn't failing, she wasn't even struggling. She was different. By the end, mud-streaked faces and heaving chests surrounded Emma, but she stood nearly unmarked, her breath steady. And that steady calm unsettled the others more than any show of dominance could. During the break, when others collapsed against walls or cursed the cold mud, Emma sat with her small notebook. The tiny pencil scratched across coded lines, her posture angled to block prying eyes. From the observation platform, Wilson lowered his binoculars, his expression grim. "Sardine coding, binary modifiers," he muttered. "She writes like her mother." Lieutenant Blackwood, standing beside him, frowned. "You're saying this isn't training, it's something else." "It's always something else," Wilson replied. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd lived long enough to know ghosts never die, they wait. Afternoon brought tactical movement drills in a wooded training area. The rain-soaked ground gave away careless steps, making stealth nearly impossible. Instructors scattered through the trees, watching for mistakes. Most candidates treated it like a game. They ducked behind obvious cover, moved in patterns that screamed predictability. But Emma moved like mist. Each step tested the ground before her weight committed. She slipped through angles where sightlines broke, where branches masked thermal bloom, techniques few alive remembered. The ghost walk, Wilson whispered to himself. Vietnam era, lost art. Yet here she was. When Emma reached the flag, the objective all were meant to retrieve, she had not been seen once. Not avoided, not missed. Invisible. Blackwood was waiting when she emerged from the tree line. His stare wasn't congratulation. It was suspicion. "Where did you learn to move like that?" he asked. "Various courses, sir." Her answer carried the weight of truth and lie braided together. Behind him, Commander Reed stepped forward. Tall, broad, silver hair catching in the sun, his pale blue eyes fixed on her like searchlights. "That thermal reduction technique you used, not taught in any school I know." Emma met his gaze, calm, neutral. Some training becomes second nature after enough practice. Reed held her eyes for a long moment as though digging beneath her skin. Finally, "Carry on, Rhodes, but know this, I'll be watching." She nodded once and walked away, unhurried. That night the barracks buzzed with whispers. Westbrook huddled with Thompson and Davidson near the mess hall. "She's hiding something," Thompson hissed. "She's too good," Davidson added, his voice edged with reluctant respect. "That wasn't training, that was experience." Westbrook's jaw clenched. Her sister's face flashed in her memory, Michelle, broken by rejection, buried at Arlington. Emma didn't just feel like a threat, she felt like an insult. Later, when the others ate, Westbrook slipped into the barracks. Her eyes went to Emma's footlocker. Regulations gave her the authority to inspect. The lock clicked open. Inside, perfection. Clothes folded to exact measurements. Gear arranged with surgical precision. Nothing personal. No traces of a life. It was like opening the room of a ghost. But then her fingers brushed paper taped to the underside of the shelf. A photograph. Faded, edges worn. A woman with auburn hair standing in Berlin, surrounded by men who looked like American intelligence. And one of those men, Robert Wilson, decades younger. Westbrook's breath caught. The woman in the picture looked exactly like Emma, too exact. The sound of voices at the door made her slam the locker shut, heart racing. Emma entered with Thompson, eyes sweeping the room, and landed on the locker for a fraction of a second. Then on Westbrook. Their eyes met. No words, only an understanding. "I know what you did, and you know that I know." Westbrook sat casually on her bunk, pretending to flip through a manual. Emma said nothing, but her small nod felt like a verdict. That night Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Rain tapped against the window like fingers drumming secrets. Her mother's voice echoed from memory. If they find out who you are, trust no one, especially not Wilson. Emma's hand slid beneath her shirt, tracing the raised lines of the tattoo carved into her spine. The Presidential Service insignia, modified with patterns known only to the Artemis program. Her mother's mark, her inheritance, her burden. The mission wasn't training anymore. It had already begun. Find Judas, finish what her mother started. Even if it meant tearing open wounds that had never healed. Even if it meant discovering that the man her mother once trusted, maybe even loved, was the traitor she had died chasing. In the command office across the compound, Reed stared out the window at the rain-slick pavement. Wilson and Blackwood waited in silence. "Gentlemen," Reed said finally, "explain to me why a Cold War operative's daughter is walking my training grounds." Wilson leaned forward, his voice gravel. "Because she's hunting Judas, and if she's anything like her mother, she won't stop until she finds him." Reed's pale eyes narrowed. "Then we'd better decide now if she's our ally or our storm." Why wasn't she shivering? By the time the candidates clawed their way out of the bay, lips blue, bodies trembling from the near-freezing water, Emma stood upright, steady, like she had just walked out of a pool on a summer day. Not untouched. Her face was pale, her clothes clung heavy, but her mind was still sharp, her movements controlled. The others noticed. Even Lieutenant Blackwood, clipboard in hand, paused long enough to look twice. And from the observation deck, Robert Wilson lowered his binoculars slowly, as if watching a ghost replay itself in the present. "She's using the Artemis stroke pattern," Wilson muttered to Commander Reed beside him. "Her mother helped design it. Arctic survival drills, 78. Reed's pale eyes stayed on Emma. "She's not even breathing hard." "That's conditioning," Wilson said quietly. "Pain separated from function. The Soviets did it first. We perfected it. Diane drilled it into her early." Emma moved past the line of shaking bodies, silent, her boots dripping against the pier. Instructors barked the next evolution. Weapons assembly. Blindfolded. Fingers numb from cold. No excuses. One by one, candidates fumbled, cursed, dropped pins into puddles. Westbrook finished quickly but failed the function test. Her weapon would have jammed in the field. The instructor stripped it from her hands, his voice flat. "Disqualified." Westbrook's jaw locked. Rage burned behind her eyes. And when she looked at Emma, who had just finished assembling hers with careful precision, every part aligned, safety engaged, something dark flickered there. Humiliation. Resentment. A wound deeper than cold water. She brushed past Emma hard enough to jar her shoulder. "I know what you are, Rhodes," she whispered. "The question is, do they?" Emma didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said more than words could. That evening, Wilson found her near the edge of the compound, watching gulls wheel over San Diego Bay. His cane tapped against the pavement as he stopped beside her. "Impressive performance," he said softly. Emma didn't look at him. "My mother would call it reckless. She told me never to reveal too much too soon." Wilson's voice lowered, graver. "And yet you did." "Adaptation," Emma replied. "Mission parameters changed." Her eyes finally cut to him, green, sharp, unblinking. "You already know what my parameters are." "Find Judas." Wilson's voice was nearly swallowed by the wind. "Finish what your mother started." Emma's jaw tightened. "Justice for Prague." For a heartbeat, Wilson's eyes betrayed something. Regret, maybe even guilt. Justice can take many forms. Vengeance rarely delivers what it promises. "I'm not interested in promises," Emma said. "I'm interested in truth." The moment stretched, tension balanced on the edge of history neither of them could fully name aloud. Then voices carried from the compound, footsteps, urgent, commanding. Emma turned. Blackwood was approaching with a man at his side. Silver hair, expensive civilian clothes, a bearing that radiated authority. His face belonged to someone who had walked power corridors for decades. Wilson froze. His voice dropped to a whisper only Emma could hear. Carson. Emma's eyes flickered. Who? William Carson, former CIA director. Wilson's grip tightened on his cane. He was oversight for Project Artemis in its final years. He signed off on Prague. Emma's gaze hardened, tracking Carson as he closed the distance. Then he's the man who sent my mother to die. Carson's expression revealed nothing as he extended a hand. Candidate Rhodes, I've heard impressive things. Emma took it carefully, her touch brief, measured. Just doing my best, sir. Carson smiled without warmth. Your best appears to be unusual. Lieutenant Blackwood tells me you've demonstrated skills beyond standard training. That intrigues me. Behind him, Wilson's jaw clenched. His silence screamed louder than any warning could. Carson's eyes lingered on Emma, sharp and searching. Then he turned to Blackwood. I'd like to observe the next evolution. Urban infiltration, sir. 1,300 hours, Blackwood confirmed. Excellent, Carson gave a small nod, his smile still plastered in place. I look forward to it. As Carson walked away, Emma finally exhaled. Her voice was quiet but firm. What's his angle? Wilson didn't answer at first. His gaze followed Carson like a man watching a predator circle a cage. He's always had one. First an operator, then a politician. If he's here in person, something changed. Something significant. Emma's stare stayed fixed on Carson's retreating figure. Connected to Judas. Or to what your mother found in Prague, Wilson admitted. Either way, his presence complicates everything. Emma's voice was a blade. For me or for you? Wilson didn't answer. The silence between them felt heavier than truth. Hours later, the candidates gathered at the urban warfare facility, a maze of concrete walls and windows built to mimic embassies and city blocks. Rain slicked the structures, shadows pooling in alleys. The air smelled of wet cement and tension. Emma's eyes swept the compound once. Recognition flared instantly. Prague. Not just any building, but a replica of the Czech state security headquarters. The very place her mother's last mission had led her, the place she had never returned from. Her stomach knotted. Coincidence didn't exist here. Someone had chosen this layout deliberately. Her team assignment made the knot tighten further. Westbrook, Thompson, Davidson, the three most hostile toward her, put together on purpose, forced trust where none existed. Blackwood's voice rang over the compound. Your objective, infiltrate through the service entrance. 3rd floor, secure communications center, retrieve intel, exfiltrate undetected, capture equals failure. He gave them 30 minutes to plan. Westbrook took charge immediately, spreading the map. Davidson on point, Thompson rear, Rhodes with me. Central corridor to the stairwell, straight shot. Emma studied the map. Her voice stayed calm. The central corridor is a choke point. Overlapping sightlines will be exposed on 3 sides. In the real facility, that would be a guaranteed ambush. Davidson rolled his eyes. We've all handled corridors before. Not like this, Emma countered. She tapped a section of the blueprint. Eastern Bloc security architecture, designed for layered traps. The central corridor will be watched. Westbrook's glare sharpened. And you know this how? Emma's answer was soft, unflinching. Experience. Suspicion flared in Thompson's face. What kind of experience would a civilian have in a Czech security building? The kind that isn't in my file, Emma said simply. She looked back at the map. Use the maintenance shaft. Bypass the main checkpoints. We reach the comms center with less exposure. Westbrook's voice cut like a whip. That adds 15 minutes. And increases success probability, Emma replied evenly. This isn't a debate, I'm team leader. Westbrook folded the map sharply. We use the corridor, unless you're questioning my authority." Emma paused. She could push back, ignite conflict, tear the team apart before they even began. Or she could wait, adapt, let failure prove her right. She lowered her gaze. "Your call, Sergeant, I'll follow." Davidson smirked. Thompson nodded, relieved. Westbrook looked triumphant. But as they walked toward the entrance, Emma's thoughts weren't on the plan. They were on the building itself, the memories carved into its design, the walls that had swallowed her mother, the ghosts waiting inside, and the traitor who might be watching from the shadows, waiting for her to make one wrong move. Why did she know the building better than the map? Team Alpha moved into position, rifles at the ready, breaths visible in the damp air. The rain had left the concrete slick, shadows stretching long between street lamps. To the others, it was just a training maze. To Emma, it was memory carved in stone, the building her mother had never come back from. Every doorway, every angle, every blind spot had meaning burned into her from Diane's journals. Westbrook led with rigid confidence. "Central corridor, move." Davidson went point, Thompson on rear, Emma in the middle beside Westbrook. They advanced smoothly at first, weapons tracking, boots striking the wet concrete with disciplined rhythm. But Emma's gaze kept shifting, corners, vents, hidden lines of sight. She felt the trap before it sprung. They reached the first checkpoint. Davidson handled the electronic lock with practiced hands. The door clicked open. The team filed in. Emma's posture stiffened. Her mother had written of this exact sequence, how the first lock was bait, designed to give intruders confidence before triggering the real defense. Her muscles tensed as if expecting ghosts to pour through the walls. Halfway down the corridor, the ambush came. Instructors playing opposition surged from side rooms with brutal precision. Gunfire cracked, echoing off the walls. Lights strobed red. The team dropped for cover, pinned in seconds, just as Emma had warned. Westbrook cursed, signaling for fire and advance. Davidson and Thompson laid suppressive fire, but the angles were against them. Crossfire from 3 directions, no cover worth the name. A perfect choke point, a perfect kill zone. Emma's eyes slid to an unmarked door halfway down the corridor. Narrow, unremarkable, ignored by everyone else. A service access. Not on the tactical map, but she knew it would be there. She had seen its shadow in her mother's drawings. "We're boxed in," Thompson shouted over the chaos. "That door," Emma said, her voice low, steady. She pointed. Westbrook's glare snapped toward her. "It's not on the map." "No, it wouldn't be," Emma said, calm as stone. "Service infrastructure never is, but it leads to a maintenance shaft, parallel to this corridor. Safer path to the stairwell." "How do you know?" Davidson demanded, suspicion heavy in his tone. "Because I've seen this before," Emma answered simply. Her eyes never left Westbrook. "You want to fail this exercise, stay here. You want to succeed, follow me." For a moment the air between them was heavier than the simulated gunfire. Challenge, authority, pride. Finally Westbrook gave a sharp nod. "Do it." Emma moved fast, crouching low, crossing the corridor under suppressive fire. She reached the service door, fingers finding the mechanical lock. No electronics here, reliability mattered in the real design. She slid a small tool from her pocket, something she wasn't supposed to have, and with practiced movements, the lock clicked open. The others hesitated, stunned by the skill. How Thompson began. "Practice," Emma cut her off, pulling the door open. The corridor beyond stretched narrow, dim, quiet, exactly as she knew it would. They slipped inside, closing the door behind them. The noise of the firefight faded, replaced by damp silence and the hum of old wiring. Westbrook said nothing, but her jaw was tight, her pride cracked. From the command center above, Carson leaned forward toward the monitors. "She knew it," he said softly. "Not just the layout, the details, the maintenance routes, the contingency systems." Wilson's expression was unreadable, though his hand gripped his cane tighter. Diane prepared her, thoroughly. Prepared her or walked her through it, Carson countered, his eyes narrowing. This is more than documentation. This is lived familiarity. Wilson didn't answer. On the screens, Team Alpha advanced through the maintenance shaft. The angles favored them now, blind to opposition, hidden from traps. They emerged near the stairwell, untouched. But Emma wasn't celebrating. Her eyes moved constantly, scanning for the next trap. She knew this wasn't over, not here, not in Prague. At the third floor, Westbrook resumed lead, tactical, sharp, professional. The communications center door loomed, secured and fortified. Standard breach protocol. Explosives flash storm in. But Emma's gaze shifted, catching another small detail. A panel on the wall beside the main door, an access point that looked ordinary, harmless. In the real facility, Emma whispered, there would be a secondary security office behind that panel, connected directly to the comms room. If you breach the main door, they'll come through the side and cut you down. Westbrook froze, torn between procedure and Emma's quiet certainty. Not on the map, Davidson muttered. Neither was the shaft, Emma said, her eyes locked on Westbrook. You trusted me once, do it again or lose everyone. The seconds stretched. Gunfire echoes from other teams crackled through the facility. Westbrook's breathing was sharp in the comm feed. Finally, she gave the signal. Emma moved to the panel, her hands working with speed and precision. The mechanism gave, revealing the hidden passage. Behind it, an instructor, armed and ready, exactly as she had said. Emma's rifle snapped up, steady, aimed. The instructor froze, conceding. Clear, Emma said quietly. They breached the main comms room with flawless timing, securing the objective. Success. From the command center, Carson sat back in his chair, studying the monitors with an intensity that made even Blackwood uneasy. She's her mother's daughter, he said finally. There's no doubt. Wilson's voice was low, almost mournful. The question isn't who she is, William. The question is what she wants, and whether we can survive it. Emma stood in the comm center, weapon steady, eyes cold. The others panted with relief. But she wasn't relieved. She wasn't even surprised. This wasn't training to her. This was memory. This was inheritance. And somewhere in the walls of this simulation, Emma felt her mother's ghost whispering, "Trust no one, not even him." She tightened her grip on the rifle. Because Judas could be anywhere. Maybe even in the room above, watching her now. Why hadn't she slept? The others collapsed after the infiltration exercise, bodies drained, adrenaline fatting into exhaustion. But Emma lay awake in the barracks, staring at the ceiling, her notebook open beneath the dim light of a small desk lamp. Lines of code filled the page, not for training notes, not for memories, for reminders, hidden truths she dared not speak aloud, every symbol tied to her mother's journals, every curve a key. But when dawn came and the whistle shrieked, Emma looked as rested as if she'd slept 8 hours. No circles under her eyes, no dragging steps, just calm, steady motion. The others noticed. And so did Blackwood. By mid-morning, the candidates were marched into a low, windowless building at the far end of the compound. Inside, harsh lights, bare walls, steel chairs. No training grounds here. This was the crucible where instructors broke minds, not bodies. Interrogation drills, Blackwood announced, his voice carrying no sympathy. Sleep deprivation, psychological pressure, stress inoculation. You will resist, or you will fail. Candidates shifted uneasily. Some had faced SEER training before, some had not. Emma sat still, expression unreadable. The drill began. One by one, candidates were dragged into small, locked rooms, blinding lights, deafening noise. Questions shouted, threats whispered. Water dripped, chains rattled, hours bled away. Emma's turn came after 12 hours of waiting in the holding pen, hunger gnawing at stomachs, fatigue pressing on nerves. They sat her in a metal chair, cuffed her wrists. Lights blazed into her face until her pupils shrank to pinpoints. Name, an instructor barked. Emma Rhodes. Unit. Candidate, Naval Special Warfare. History. Silence. The questions grew sharper. What's your background? Where did you train? Who taught you those infiltration techniques? Emma's breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. Her mother's voice echoed in memory, never fight their rhythm. Break it. Answer the question they didn't ask. So she spoke, not in English, not in any tongue the instructors expected. Russian. Fluent, sharp, perfect. The interrogators exchanged quick looks, caught off guard. Repeat in English, one demanded. She shook her head. Language is choice. You wanted answers, I gave them. You didn't ask for translation. Hours passed. They tried breaking her with noise, with cold, with silence. She endured, not rigidly, not with stubborn defiance. She absorbed it, bent without breaking, flowed like water, resisting without resistance. Finally, they released her back into the holding pen. The others looked wrecked. Thompson's eyes were bloodshot. Davidson had vomited twice. Westbrook sat rigid, fury and exhaustion burning side by side. Emma sank against the wall, eyes closing briefly, not in surrender but in control. Davidson stared. What the hell are you? He muttered. Emma opened her eyes slowly, calmly. Human, same as you. He didn't believe her. None of them did. From the observation room, Carson watched intently, arms folded. She doesn't just endure pressure, she redirects it. That's not candidate-level resilience. That's deep conditioning. Reed stood beside him, jaw tight. Conditioning from where? Carson's eyes shifted toward Wilson. You tell me, you knew her mother. Wilson's silence stretched long. Finally, her mother was the best field officer I ever saw, but she trained her daughter for something more, something she didn't trust anyone else to finish. Carson's smile was thin. Prague. Wilson didn't reply. Later that night in the barracks, Westbrook sat awake while the others slept. Her eyes burned holes in Emma across the room. She couldn't take it anymore. The secrecy, the calm superiority, the way instructors treated Emma like a specimen instead of a recruit. When Emma left quietly for the latrine, Westbrook followed. She found Emma near the sinks, washing her face, hair damp, her notebook resting on the counter beside her. Westbrook moved fast, snatching the notebook before Emma could stop her. Emma's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with sudden, shocking strength. Put it back, she said, voice calm but carrying steel. Westbrook yanked her hand free, opening the notebook. Her eyes scanned the coded pages, lines of symbols, strange diagrams, words that meant nothing, yet everything. What is this? Westbrook demanded. What are you hiding? Emma's gaze didn't waver. A private record. Bullshit. Westbrook's voice was low, seething. You're not one of us. You're not here to be a SEAL. You're here for something else. Emma stepped closer, reclaiming the notebook with quiet force. Her voice softened, almost regretful. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. Emma paused, eyes searching Westbrook's face. The rage there, the grief hidden beneath it. She almost said it, almost told her about Diane, about Prague, about Judas. But her mother's warning stopped her cold. Trust no one, especially not her allies. Emma slipped the notebook into her pocket. Some truths only destroy those who hear them. Westbrook's jaw clenched. Then you're a liar and I'll prove it. Emma walked away silent. Behind her, Westbrook's whisper followed like a curse. Whatever you are, you don't belong here. The storm outside pounded against the compound, wind rattling windows. In the command building, Carson stood by the glass, staring out at the Black Sea. She's hiding something in that notebook, he said. Wilson leaned on his cane. Of course she is, same as her mother, codes on top of codes. The real question is what's written. It's who she intends to share it with. Carson's reflection in the glass looked like a shadow of something darker, or who she intends to expose. Emma lay awake in her bunk, notebook clutched beneath her hand. Her mother's voice echoed once more, softer now, almost like a lullaby. The ones closest to you will be the ones who try hardest to break you. She closed her eyes, steadying her breath. Because tomorrow, they would break her body harder than ever before. And somewhere in the shadows, Judas was already waiting for the cracks. Why hadn't she rung the bell? By the end of the second night, half the class was gone. Their helmets sat neatly beneath the brass bell at the edge of the compound, the symbol of surrender. Cold, wet, broken, they had chosen warmth and rest over pain. No shame in quitting. No one judged. But Emma stayed. She staggered with the rest, salt water soaking her clothes, sand grinding into her skin until it tore. Her hair clung to her face, her lips cracked. Yet her eyes, those green eyes, never dulled. Even the instructors noticed. At dawn, after a night of log PT and freezing surf, Blackwood stalked the line of candidates. His voice cut sharp against the wind. "You want to quit? Ring it. Save us the time. Save yourself the pain. Nothing wrong with knowing your limits." A Marine dropped his log and stumbled forward, helmet in hand. The bell rang. Blackwood turned to Emma, standing near the end. "You, civilian, you don't belong here. Go ring it." She shook her head slowly. Blackwood's stare sharpened. "Say it out loud. Say, 'I won't quit.'" Emma's lips parted. Her voice was soft, almost fragile, but steady. "I won't quit." The others heard it, and somehow the sound of her quiet voice weighed more than any shouted defiance. Westbrook glared at her through the mist, rage simmering. Thompson glanced nervously between them. Davidson looked away, shaken. By the third night, hallucinations began. Men saw lights that weren't there, heard voices in the surf. The line between real and imagined blurred. Emma wasn't immune. She saw her mother. In the dark waves between flashes of lightning, Diane's figure appeared soaked, hair wild, lips moving soundlessly. Emma blinked, shivered, turned her face away. But the image clung like a ghost stitched into her vision. Her body broke like the others. Muscles trembled, skin split, feet blistered, but her will hardened. Because Hell Week wasn't new to her. Her mother had recreated it years ago, on frozen lakes, in abandoned warehouses, in nights so long Emma thought she would die. Diane had pushed her daughter to the brink, whispering, "This is the only way you'll survive what's coming." Now in the storm, Emma understood. The others fought for pride, she fought for purpose. By day 5, Westbrook finally cracked. Her fury at Emma, her grief for her sister, her exhaustion, it all broke open. In the surf, while the team carried boats overhead, Westbrook shoved Emma hard, sending her stumbling into the water. "Quit," she screamed over the waves. "You don't deserve this. You're not one of us." Emma hit the water, rolled, came up gasping. She didn't answer. She just lifted her shoulder under the boat again, silent, steady. Westbrook lunged, but Thompson and Davidson held her back, shouting. Instructors barked, threatening disqualification if the fight continued. Emma said nothing, not a word. Later, back at the compound, Westbrook confronted her again. "What are you hiding? What's on your back?" Emma froze. Her shirt clung wet to her body. The faint outline of the tattoo, the emblem down her spine, was visible under the light. Westbrook's eyes widened. "That mark, I've seen it before. Classified files, black projects. Who the hell are you?" Emma pulled her shirt tighter. Her voice was low, almost pleading. "You don't want to know." But Westbrook's fury only grew. "I'll find out, I swear it." From the command center, Carson watched every moment on the monitors. His eyes narrowed at the glimpse of the tattoo. His whisper carried a chill. "The Artemis insignia." Reed turned sharply. "You recognize it?" Carson's jaw clenched. "I authorized it." Wilson's grip tightened on his cane. "God help us." "God has nothing to do with this," Carson muttered. If that girl carries Artemis' mark, she's not here to train. She's here to finish her mother's war. Reed's voice cut through the tension. Then what do we do with her? Carson stared at the screen. Emma's pale face illuminated under floodlights as she endured another round of push-ups in wet sand. His answer was quiet, calculated, cold. We let her break everyone else, and when she's the last one standing, we decide if she's asset or threat. The rain hammered harder against the windows, as if the sky itself wanted to drown the compound. Emma pushed through another wave of commands, another hour of punishment. Her lips trembled, her muscles screamed, her eyes blurred. But she didn't quit. She couldn't quit. Because somewhere out there, Judas was still alive. And if she failed here, she failed her mother forever. Why didn't anyone sit near her anymore? The barracks were half empty now. Hell Week had thinned the ranks to less than a dozen, but the distance between Emma and the others felt wider than the room itself. Conversations hushed when she walked in. Eyes slid away or lingered too long. Even Thompson, once sympathetic, avoided her gaze. Only Westbrook looked at her directly, not with respect, with venom. Word had spread. Whispers about the tattoo, about the coded notebook, about how instructors treated her differently. Ghost, someone muttered when she passed. Plant. She didn't respond, she never did. But the isolation pressed heavy, not because she wanted friendship, because she wanted silence, and silence was no longer possible. That afternoon, Reed summoned her to his office. The room was stark, bare desk, maps on the walls, blinds half drawn against the gray light. Carson stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, gaze fixed on the sea. Wilson sat in the corner, cane resting across his lap, his face unreadable. Candidate Rhodes, Reed began, voice flat. Sit. Emma obeyed, posture straight, eyes calm. Reed studied her for a long moment. You've performed uniquely, not the strongest, not the fastest, but the most enduring and the most unconventional. Emma said nothing. Carson turned from the window. His smile was polite, but his eyes carried knives. The tattoo on your back, care to explain? Emma's pulse quickened, but her voice stayed even. A family mark. Carson stepped closer, circling. Family, yes, Diane Rhodes, your mother, operative, field officer, dead in Prague, 1992. The name landed like a blade. Emma's fingers tightened against her knee. You knew her. Carson's smile sharpened. Better than you realize. Wilson shifted in his chair, his silence heavy, his eyes on the floor. Reed's gaze cut through the tension. The Artemis Project. That insignia belonged to a program buried deeper than most wars. What's your connection? Emma met his eyes. I am the connection. The silence after those words was suffocating. Finally Carson laughed softly, not humor, contempt. So it's true, Diane trained you, prepared you, bred you for this. Emma's jaw clenched. She prepared me for survival, nothing more. Carson leaned close, his voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. Survival is what Artemis was built for. It was built to hunt Judas. And if you carry that mark, you're not just her daughter, you're her replacement. Emma's heartbeat thundered. She held his stare, refusing to flinch. Then maybe that's what you're afraid of. For the first time, Carson's smile faltered. Reed cleared his throat. Enough, candidate dismissed. Emma stood, turned, and left without another word. The door closed. Reed faced Carson. You pushed too far. Carson's voice was low, hard. She's not a candidate, she's a weapon, and if we don't control her, she'll burn everything we've built. Wilson finally spoke, his voice tired, heavy. You don't control people like her. You either stand beside them or you get crushed beneath them. Carson's eyes narrowed, spoken like a man who still carries guilt. Wilson's cane tapped once against the floor. Better guilt than betrayal. The room chilled. That night Westbrook cornered Emma near the armory. No instructors, No cameras, just rage boiling over. "You're not one of us," she spat. "You're a liar, a plant. You think you're better than everyone because of who your mother was." Emma's voice stayed soft. "I never asked for any of this." Westbrook's eyes burned. "My sister tried for this program, Michelle. She gave everything and she died trying. They buried her with a flag and told us it was honor." Her voice cracked. "And then you walk in, no uniform, no history, no scars, and you succeed where she failed. You don't deserve it." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything to ease that grief, but the truth would only cut deeper. Westbrook's fist slammed into her chest, shoving her back against the wall. "I swear I'll expose you, whatever you are." Emma didn't fight back. She only whispered, "You'll regret it." Westbrook froze, not at the words but at the weight behind them. Not threat, not arrogance, just certainty. She stormed away, her anger no less but her hands shaking. Alone again, Emma touched her spine, feeling the ridges of the tattoo beneath her shirt. Her mother's voice came like a ghost through the rain outside. "Judas is closer than you think." She closed her eyes. And in that moment she realized something. It wasn't just suspicion. Someone inside this compound wanted her to fail. Someone inside was Judas' shadow. Why was the compound suddenly too quiet? After weeks of constant noise, shouts, gunfire, storms, bells, silence had crept in like an intruder. It wasn't the silence of rest. It was the silence of something waiting. Emma felt it in her bones before the alarms even sounded. The training schedule had said night navigation drills, maps, compasses, movement under stars. But the moment they entered the wooded perimeter, Emma knew something was wrong. No instructors in sight. No checkpoints lit. The forest swallowed sound, the air thick and heavy. Davidson muttered, "Feels off." Westbrook gripped her rifle tighter. "Stay sharp." Emma's gaze swept the tree line. Her stomach knotted. This wasn't training, this was staging. The first gunshot proved it. Not blanks, real, sharp, echoing through the dark. A round slammed into a tree inches from Thompson's head. She screamed, dropping low. Chaos erupted. "Contact," Davidson shouted. The team scrambled, weapons raised, hearts pounding. But there was no visible opposition. Just shadows moving through the trees, silent, professional, too precise for instructors playing games. Emma's breath stilled. This is it. She grabbed Westbrook's arm. "Not an exercise, real hostiles." Westbrook yanked free. "How would you know?" "Because I've seen this pattern before," Emma hissed. "It's Judas' signature. Flank and fade, ghost fire. They're not here to test us. They're here for me." Another shot cracked, grazing Davidson's shoulder. He cursed, blood staining his sleeve. Thompson froze, panic in her eyes. Emma pulled them toward cover, voice calm but cutting. "Move, split angles, don't cluster." Westbrook stared at her, torn between hate and survival. Finally she nodded, shouting commands. The team moved, scattering, finding ground. In the command center, alarms blared. Screens flickered. Carson stood rigid, Reed barking orders. "What the hell is happening?" Reed snapped. Wilson's voice was low, grim. "They're here for her." Carson's jaw clenched. "Judas." On the monitors, shadows moved around the candidates like wolves circling prey. Back in the woods, Emma pressed Thompson low against the earth, whispering, "Breathe. Don't fight the fear, use it." Thompson's tears streaked mud down her face. "We'll die out here." Emma's voice softened. "Not if you listen." She raised her eyes, scanning the dark. Her mother's training unfurled inside her, every lesson, every warning. Judas didn't fight to win battles. Judas fought to send messages. "Stay low," Emma ordered. The next burst of fire lit the trees. Emma tracked the rhythm, the angles. She saw it, the faintest silhouette. Not sloppy, not reckless, a professional. Her whisper was a ghost. "I see you." She squeezed the trigger. The shadow crumpled. The forest went still for a breath. Then movement again, faster, more desperate. Westbrook's eyes widened. You actually hit one. Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. Minutes bled like hours. The team fought, stumbled, endured. Two more shadows dropped. The rest vanished into the trees, melting back into night. Silence again. Only ragged breaths remained. Davidson clutched his wound. Thompson shook, adrenaline rattling her bones. Westbrook stood stiff, eyes locked on Emma. You knew, Westbrook whispered. Not accusation, realization. Emma's lips parted, her voice a fragile truth. Because my mother died to teach me. The forest wind carried those words into silence. Later in the debrief chamber, Reed's fist slammed the table. An unauthorized hostile breach on U.S. soil. In my compound. How the hell? Carson cut him off. It wasn't a breach, it was an unveiling. Wilson leaned heavily on his cane, his face pale. Judas wanted to send a message. Emma's here. The game isn't over. Emma sat opposite them, hands still trembling, mud streaking her uniform. She stared at the floor, voice quiet. He's been here the whole time, hasn't he? Carson's silence confirmed it. Emma raised her eyes slowly, meeting Wilson's. Tell me, who is Judas? Wilson's expression cracked, the first real fracture in his mask. His voice came hoarse, barely audible. Not one man, not one ghost. A network, a betrayal written into the bones of the system. But the one who signed Praga is sitting in this room. Emma's breath caught. Her gaze shifted. Carson smiled faintly, his eyes cold, unashamed. You wanted truth, girl. Here it is. Your mother wasn't betrayed by strangers. She was betrayed by the very machine she served. By men like Wilson, by me. The words were knives. Wilson's head lowered. Diane suspected. She tried to stop us. She died for it. Emma's heart thundered. Rage pressed like fire behind her ribs. She wanted to raise her hands, to strike, to finish the war her mother never could. But her mother's last words echoed, sharp as steel. Vengeance will eat you. Justice will outlive you. Emma's voice trembled, but it held. I won't be your weapon, not like her, not like you. Carson's smile faltered. Then you'll never win. Emma stood slowly, every movement deliberate. Sometimes winning isn't about killing the enemy. Sometimes it's about surviving him, outlasting him. She turned for the door. Reed didn't stop her. Wilson didn't meet her eyes. Carson's silence followed like a curse. Outside, dawn was breaking. Pale light washed over the compound, soft against the scars of night. Emma walked across the wet ground, her notebook heavy in her pocket, her mother's tattoo burning against her spine. She didn't know what would come next, only that Judas still lived, still watched, still waited. But she had endured, she had survived, and survival was the seed of something greater. Her mother had taught her that dignity wasn't in speeches or medals. It was in refusing to bow, refusing to quit, refusing to become what the world demanded. Emma lifted her face to the light. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.